this Thursday. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Dennis Fithian, and it's Thursday. That means we talk with former Wolverine Jim Scarcelli, who joins us. Jim, how are you?
Hey, life is good, man. Denny, you ever been down to Xochimilco's to get the super burrito down there? Oh, man. You got to go down and get one. I can eat, and I have a hard time finishing that thing off. The super burrito, Xochimilco's. Check it out one time.
I didn't know. I had heard of Xochimilco's, and I think it stayed open. I don't know what the hours are now, but back in the day, I remember in high school the first time hearing about it, I would hear people say, we're heading down to Xochimilco's, and like, wow, that's a long drive. But they'd say, well, it stays open until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I went there, and then across the street, I went to another place. Then my wife turned me on to a place that had these tamales, which is really close to Xochimilco's. And then a couple of years ago, when I was down in between a Tiger doubleheader, not a straight doubleheader like they played yesterday, you get like 4 hours to kill downtown. I went into Mexican town thinking I was going to go to Xochimilco's, but somebody said, hey, drive a little bit. It's bigger than you think. Well, you start driving into Mexican town in Detroit, and it's not just some little block or two. You can start driving miles. I remember driving about a mile or two, and I stopped at what looked like I might have been in the middle of the desert in Mexico, and went in and ordered up some lunch. I didn't like it. It was a little bit too, maybe it was a little bit too close to the same thing. It was just soups and stuff. But Xochis. I'm with you on that. I couldn't spell it for $1 million right now, but I'm ready. I like some Mexican food. Who doesn't? Right?
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's good. Forget the diet when you go in there, because they use real lard in with the refried beans, but it's all good stuff, man.
Yeah, well, some people can tell you that fat's okay as long as it's not your sugar and flour. Stay away from those things. Stay away from the flautas and what do they call those cinnamon twists after? They don't call them those. I forget what those are. Churros and some chocolate sauce. Stay away from those, Scott.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right. Hey, well, what are we talking about today? We've got a number of things here. Name, image, and likeness continues to stay top of mind, front page news, however you want to put it. People talking about it nonstop, and that includes us right here. I'm going to ask the Coach Scar here if he would rather have a great defense or a great offense in modern-day college football. What would bode well for winning it all? Speaking of the coach there, Scar, he's been watching some of these spring games around the Big Ten. He'll pick a couple of the teams out and give us a scouting report on them. And Michigan's got a transfer combo guard from Princeton named Jaelin Llewellyn, and we have some tape that we're going to watch together. And Scar and I will talk about what we're looking at there. How's that sound, Scar?
Sounds great. Yeah, NIL is a factor, man. It's a big factor. Denny, it initially when it started to happen, I'm like, is this going to come down to who's got the wealthiest alumni? Is that where we're at? Is that what this thing's going to be? Not so much about, your coaching, but who's got the wealthiest alumni? But I think Michigan is able to compete. I think we have. I think our two major programs, Jim Harbaugh and Juwan Howard. I think their background in the NFL and the NBA, these guys are used. I'm sure they have a budget. I would guess that both those coaches, all of our coaches, are going to have some type of a budget that will be NIL type opportunities that our program has available for them to spend. And I think Jim and Juwan are, they got experience in the professional ranks. So that's I think that's a benefit for Michigan, but it's definitely there. I would believe they have a budget. It's something that bugged me listening to Saban talk. This is gonna, it's not sustainable, and it's easy for him to take $10 million. It's easy for an assistant coach to make $1.5 million. But he wants to now say, we got a problem with players getting their cut now. So that kind of bugged me, because I'm all about the players getting their shot at this stuff. But Another thing that no one's talking about, and we haven't heard it yet, Denny, is Title IX. We haven't heard, because the majority of the people making the money and getting these big paydays are men's sports guys. So just a couple things out there, but I do think Michigan is going to be able to compete. I think our coaches have the necessary support that we can go and get kids that we want to get. We've got to offer everything else, the education, the football, and those opportunities, and we'll be able to compete.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on some of the key points here, and if we just go back and dive into those. The one thing about Michigan, a prospect will ask, hey, what about the academics? What about the football program? You're going to get me into the NFL? What about the kind of money I could make? And Juwan Howard and Jim Harbaugh, for instance, are going to have and any of the assistant coaches are going to have answers for that. But Michigan, as a university, they are not handing out the name, image, and likeness. There is no budget there, and the reason is for exactly what you said. If they, let's just say, give $1 million to a 5-star quarterback, well, that is going to open up a lawsuit for Title IX. There can be a rower on the Michigan women's rowing team saying, hey, where's our $1 million? It has to be a third party that is could be a supporter of Michigan, certainly, and might work and discuss things with the athletic department, but they have to be separate from the university. And that's where some of this gray area gets involved, because, the coaches are talking about it, but they can't just say, hey, we've got $5 million here. Let's throw 4 at some 5-star quarterback. They need a supporter, if you want to call it a wealthy booster, that is getting together either by himself or putting together a collection from other Michigan donors. And then they're going out and getting that money to the prospect, not to come to Michigan, because that's the only rule. There's 2 rules. You can't give the money to say, hey, you're coming here. We're paying you to come here, pay for play. You're coming in here and you have to do something for the money, where you could be a sponsor. If I was running if I was an attorney and I was given that 5-star quarterback, I could say, hey, I'll give you $2 million over the next 4 years for you to be a spokesperson. Those satisfy the bare minimum, which is the only thing that the NCAA has a ruling on right now. So it opens itself up for a lot of end arounds and a lot of different things that you can do. What's Michigan doing? There's a lot of Michigan companies, like when you watch Michigan football or listen to Michigan football on the radio, there's a lot of, hey, we're a proud sponsor of Michigan football. Those particular companies in the state of Michigan, they might want to go out, and they're the ones that might want to take a little bit of their own money and then get out there and get it into the recruits' hands. And you do have to work with the athletic department, but you can't say that you're working with them because those lawsuits that you're talking about. So this is going every day, all these things. And a lot of it, Scar, is the semantics. Like Michigan right now, Hunter Dickinson, he had some things to say. Like he said, he felt bad for Jim Harbaugh. I felt bad for Juwan Howard because of some of the name, image, and likeness money that was being, it's being, thrown around and talked about this week. Well, Hunter Dickinson, the reason that he came back to Michigan in big part was the name, image, and likeness. So Michigan is doing well there. J.J. McCarthy is doing well with name, image, and likeness. But to cross into that gray area where you're telling recruits, in particular these 5-star recruits, let's mention Dante Moore, who seems like he's given the cold shoulder to Michigan, the quarterback out of King, looks, Notre Dame, Oregon, and LSU, they're in there. Whatever they're promising, upfront money immediately, Michigan, they can say, hey, look, J.J. McCarthy's making close to $1 million if that's the case. And so they can say, look, that's what you can make here, where these other schools, how they word it and how they're selling it, it looks to be different. And those schools, prior to name, image, and likeness being involved, definitely Oregon and LSU, we know that there were boosters, you call them rogue boosters, that were giving money illegally against NCAA rules to prospects. But now it's all fair game. Now it's legal to be able to do it. So Michigan needed, I don't know if they need to sell it a different way. They need to talk about it a different way. They need to get into that gray area and say, hey, we're in here with everybody else. How they're going about it. There's a lot of people that feel like they're behind the 8 ball. Others are saying, hey, you just need the boosters to step in there and start taking care of it. So a lot of it wording and salesmanship when it comes down to this.
Denny, I'm just putting myself into Jim Harbaugh's position or Juwan Howard because I've been a head coach, high school, whatever. But, what we don't understand is we don't understand that relationship between our coaches and those boosters or that collective. We don't know how they're working together. Okay, so if the coach and this collective or those boosters, they got to be on the same page, because I guarantee you that booster's not just throwing out or whatever this collective, they're not throwing out these figures without direct conversation with the coaches to say, look, we want this kid more than we want that kid. This guy, we need to get this guy. This guy is here. So we don't know, we don't know the answer to that question. Jimbo Fisher has his guy. How did he determine which guys are worth this, that, or whatever? Miami Hurricanes had their deal. They're, we want this kid from Kansas State. We can come up with, so those they're on the same page, the coach and the booster collective. And I guarantee you Harbaugh and Juwan are on that page, so they know where they're at. But a couple of things I wanted to also throw out that I'm kind of hearing that I believe is happening is, you've got every college is going to have alumni that want to help and contribute to their university. And they've got a certain amount of dollars that these alum will dedicate maybe every year. Now I think we're going to find that the alum that wants to give to athletics, this is going to go in one direction, and now the same alum wants to give some money toward development or research or just the general university. I think we might find competition amongst ourselves with, where does that alum want his money to go, so that he's getting voices from both parts of the university. Hey, send it over here to athletics. We got to get these prospects. Send it over here to development. We need a new, psychology building or whatever. So that's one thing, Denny. And another thing is, these other sports, I think I mentioned it last week or a couple weeks back about, we lost out on a kid, big time wrestler that went to Penn State over Michigan. He really liked Michigan, wanted to go to Michigan from what my sources say. And he went to Penn State. They anteed up. They came up with a real good NIL figure for that kid. So it's not just wrestling, hockey. We got to be able to compete in all areas.
Yeah. If you just take, Stephen Ross is very wealthy and a known, Michigan alum that donates to Michigan athletics. So he's an easy person just to put up there. I think he would, I don't know, would you argue he's the top guy on that list, right? As a Michigan donor. If Stephen Ross is, thinking about giving $10 million before, it was $10 million, giving it to the athletic department, it can go to athletic facilities. And now is Michigan, are they going to earmark some of that money? But they can't necessarily. But, Ross could. I talked to somebody that you would put not in the Stephen Ross category, but right in that next tier. And I asked him actually this morning if he has been contacted by anybody, not with the university, but somebody a collective that is putting something together for Michigan. He said, no, he has not been contacted, which was a huge surprise to me. He also then mentioned that it was going to take, he said he doesn't see why a kid would consider Michigan with the money on the table everywhere else. But he says 5 to 10 donors isn't going to get it done. So I don't know what is happening behind the scenes, but this is somebody that's a big-time player that has not been contacted yet. Whoever is out there, and I know Valiant has something going, and how they're getting it going, but if they want to get in there with the big dogs, the salesmanship, how they're presenting things, and the communication with the coaches, and then all of that, maybe there's a little bit of conversation because how recruiting is going right now, that Michigan is just saying, hey, we're just going to toe the line here, and maybe they're going to have to, I don't know, if punt this season. It's not going to be music to anybody's ears, but like when it comes down to 5-star quarterbacks, take a back seat and see how this plays out a year and maybe the market settles in or whatever else before they jump in and come up with their plan and go aggressively at it next year. I don't know how that's going to work out.
I know we're just left in the dark, and the coaches and the administrators, they're not telling the public, how all this is playing out. It's very complex because, Denny, if you and I are getting recruited or I'm there and here comes a recruit and now, what are you giving this guy? What are you giving that guy? I don't know. So there's just so many things that make this complicated for the head coach and the trying to build that team at the same time. You've got all this stuff going on. So
I do know this when it comes down, Scar, to 5-star quarterbacks, the majority of the top 5-star quarterbacks are committed, whether it's going to USC or wherever they're going. But there's a couple, one being Dante Moore out of Detroit, who Michigan seems to have, whether it's lost connection or he's given them the cold shoulder or whatever it is. But there was another guy, and I don't recall his name, but I was reading quotes. It was either from his mother or his father who said, yeah, this is, we have to look at all the presentations and academics and, what's going on with but money with name, image, and likeness is right there. And, you have to consider the packages and what's being presented, especially if you're a 5-star quarterback. These guys can get, I don't know, whatever you consider generation wealth right now, but a couple $1 million if you're a 5-star quarterback right now, promised like up front before you go in and have to do anything or, make your own moves, is pretty substantial and can be a game changer for programs.
Denny, I'm just going to leave. Here's where I'm going to stand on this. Until I start hearing that from recruits that, when it starts to leak out that Michigan's missing out on kids because we're not stepping up NIL-wise, I'm going to believe that our coaches and our administrators are smart enough, that we've got the resources enough to give adequate packages, adequate opportunities to get the kind of kids we want to get. I'm just going to believe it until I hear otherwise, because we have not heard that, we've lost kids because of we're not stepping up on NIL. We have not heard it yet. Let's see how it plays out. I'm going to have faith in Jim, Juwan, Ward. I'm going to have faith, and we'll just see how it plays out.
Well, that's not a bad way to do it, because the other side could be like, look, Michigan's got a 5-star quarterback that they just picked up in J.J. McCarthy, and he is on the roster, and he is a true sophomore. So, they are sitting in a really good spot there. Juwan last year had a top 3 recruiting class. The one that he's bringing in right now is pretty good. So Juwan Howard's done a really good job. And prior to name, image, and likeness, especially in basketball, there was a lot of thought that you've got to be doing under the table, LSU type, Kansas type, Arizona type, the ones that Duke type, hooking people up with at least 6-figure deals, or you couldn't compete. And yet here was Juwan Howard seemingly doing it without that. So that's not seeing how this cycle goes and how basketball and football do in recruiting. I know there's some thought that maybe, that Michigan, they lost a little bit of momentum because of Jim Harbaugh and what he did with the Vikings, and that put him behind the 8 ball a little bit. I don't know. Now it's name, image, and likeness. It's been a while since they've scored a big-time recruit, but you're right. If we're sitting here next week and Michigan lands a 4 or certainly 5-star prospect, it'd be like, hey, where's everybody talking about the sky's falling with Michigan and name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, I see that we're in on a lot of top kids. We're down to the Final 4, down to Final 5 with a lot of kids that we've lost lately, but let's just have faith. We had a great season. We had a lot to sell. Let's see how it plays out.
All right. I like it. Let's move on. Scar, you played on the defensive side of the ball, but you coached. So you can't you can't favor one side of the ball or the other, or can you? Just thinking about it before I throw up some numbers here, would you rather in 2022, you'd like both, but would you rather have a great offense or a great defense?
Yeah, this question is it's not a real simple, quick, easy answer. But if you go by the Schembechler philosophy, you put your best players on defense. You can't hide. I know as a coach, you cannot hide defensive players. You can hide or have inferior players on offense that you can do some things. Okay, but if we're going to compare great offense, average defense, great defense, average offense, my thoughts are that a great defense is going to travel. A great defense is going to be able to defend all types of offenses. See, Michigan State gives 50 to Ohio State. That's not a great defense. You want a defense that can stop and slow down everybody to give your offense a chance. In general, Denny, I would say I do believe, though, in the old theory that, offense wins games, defense wins championships. I do tend to side with that. As long as the offense doesn't turn the ball over, we got a chance. But, the philosophies are different when you look at statistics. People want to look at, statistics of versus the score or versus the – and, you look at Wisconsin offensively. They slow the game down. It's a slow game. They're going to always have less score against them because there's less possessions in the game. You look at the academies. They're always going to have great defense. And then you have a guy like Lane Kiffin. He has a totally different philosophy. He wants to run and gun and quick and score and score. He goes for it on fourth down. He has a little different philosophy about things. It's not as easy of a question, but I always prefer my defense because I think in the long run, again, you can't. It's going to be there for you. Week in, week out, defense is going to show up.
Yeah, and really they do work hand in hand. Nothing's going to help your defense out more than being able to protect them and run the football and keep them fresh. And on the other side, nothing's going to help that offense out. And if you're able to turn the ball over and get some 3 and outs and get them back and get them more possession. So all of it's going to be able to work together. They're good points about, teams that run and throw. You think about just over the last 3 years, these two teams that both won it all, and both of them after the draft now and what Georgia and what Georgia, how many defensive players came off the board in the first round. You had Nakobe Dean free falling through the third round. Some thought he was going to be a first rounder. And the talk this year was that, the Dogs had this generational defense. They were holding teams to under 10 points per game. And then, and people that are listening, just 3 years ago, Joe Burrow goes down to the Bayou, and LSU puts up the historically great numbers on offense. Both of them won a championship. And Scar, you just look a little bit into it a little bit further. LSU, they had the top offense. They had the 26th ranked defense that year. And when you look at Georgia this past year, that's not correct. The 2021, I typed that in wrong. That might have been where Georgia was back. Michigan and it was 16-8 this year. Georgia had the number one defense when you go back. This was supposed to say number one defense, and they had a top 9 offense this past.
Let me also say this, Danny. I shared this with our listeners before. Our coaches showed us there was a 20-year period when I was playing at Michigan. 20 years. The team that led the Big Ten defensively versus the score won the Big Ten championship or shared it 20 years in a row.
Repeat that. Let me take that in again and let everybody.
Okay, so here it is. The team that gives up the fewest points wins the Big Ten championship 20 years in a row. Our coaches used to show us that statistic.
Scoring defense. Yeah.
Yep. So there was a correlation. That was the only stat I ever gave a darn about as a coach when I used to talk to my team or to my defense. Give up the fewest points, we win championships. And I looked at our statistics too as a high school coach, and there was the same correlation. Darn near, 19 out of 20 times, but it was 20 years in a row. The team that gives up the fewest points defensively wins championships. That's the way it was in my era. Okay, and it applies. But don't ever forget that. But guys like Lane Kiffin, they throw that out the window. He's got a different philosophy. He wants to score. He puts his defense in he don't care. He goes for it on 4th down on his 40-yard line. So there's guys that have different philosophies. But what I love, if I'm, like I've said it many times, I like the Michigan philosophy. We have the run game. We've got the defense that can stop all types of offenses, and we don't rush to the line. We don't speed it up so much. I just like what we're doing as a whole program that helps the defense, and it also helps our offense.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be great on one side of the ball, but you better be pretty good on the other side of the ball too. Ohio State was clear number one in points per game this year, but their defense was ranked number 38. And a lot of people, we were having a discussion yesterday, and people were making the point that Ohio State's defense was soft. Great offense, but their defense was soft. And in Georgia, while having the top defense points per game last year, and they won it, they also had a top 10 offense. So it's the 3 years ago, the LSU was the interesting one because number one offense off the board, and they weren't in the top 20 when it came to defense. But that's a little bit different. You better have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like that's a hell of an offense.
Denny, I hope this continues, and I've said it many times. When you run spread, and you are almost exclusively spread, and want to throw like they do in Columbus, that makes your defense soft. I believe it. I hope they continue with it. I will hope they continue to be a spread, throw, because when we come in with our 3 tight ends, look out. We're going to keep giving them what we gave them this past November. So I like what we're seeing there. And like I said, you got to have your program so that your offense helps your defense prepare for everybody you see, and your defense helps our offense. And I think Michigan's coaches understand that, and we're doing it.
Well, they got a new defensive coordinator down there in Ohio State. You think he's like, yeah, let's go the same direction here that they went last year? Do you think that he's talking a little bit more about toughness and getting those points per game down? Is Ohio State one of those teams that you're going to talk about today?
Dan, we're going to save that for next week. I got a good scouting report on them. I got some thoughts. I got Michigan State, Illinois, and Maryland I can talk about today briefly.
Let's hear it.
Michigan State, I want the narrative to be Michigan State transfer university. We got to get that out there, put that out. That's what they are. They can bring these guys in. Michigan cannot bring undergraduates in as easily as Michigan State can and other teams in the Big Ten. It's a disadvantage for Michigan. A lot of those kids they brought in, when you transfer to Michigan, we don't take a lot of those credits. Our listeners got to understand that. So we are at a disadvantage recruiting undergraduate transfers because so many of their credits won't transfer in. They brought a lot of guys in. Some of them are good players. They got a good-looking defensive end linebacker kid they brought in from Florida. Good-looking linebacker from Michigan State or from Mississippi State. The quarterback is back. He's good. The thing that I'm seeing that I'm hoping, they lost some real good defensive linemen at Michigan State and their offensive line. I think we're better in both lines. That's where I think we're better than them. They got good skill players. They're going to be as good skill as us, the quarterback and the receivers and the running backs. They brought a good tight end in from Illinois. But I think, the biggest change we got to make against them is we got to do a better job defensively from a coaching standpoint. That was our worst job all year coaching-wise, I think, defending in Michigan State.
Agreed. They definitely had a hard time with the substitution patterns. And when Kenneth Walker is a great running back, but going for 5 touchdowns and running the way he did, and the way they kept making the 4th down conversions and 2-point conversions, it was nuts. Thinking about that game. Yeah, they'll want to do better that way. I'm with you.
Now, Illinois, I looked at Illinois. We got them on the schedule. Okay, yes. Brett Bielema has been around. I mean, he was part of that build at Wisconsin with Barry Alvarez, and he went to Arkansas and didn't get it done. But he was with Belichick. He was with the Giants, and now he is back. Here he is back in college football, and he's building it. he's building the same kind of identity I'm seeing that he had at Wisconsin. They've gotten bigger and thicker. The Lovey had smaller offensive linemen. Philosophically, he wanted some of that rich rod stuff, just get guys in space. But you have a different type of lineman there now. They're just bigger and thicker on both sides of the ball. Their front seven on defense is bigger. So they're going to be a team that's going to defend. They're very similar to us, I think, offensively in what they want to do. They want to have a physicalness to them. And I think he's a smart coach because he has to beat Iowa, he has to beat Wisconsin in that division. So they're going to be a bigger physical team. The thing I like about our chances against them, yeah, they got big offensive linemen. They've gotten bigger, but I don't know that they're as athletic as us. So I think we're more athletic on both sides of the line of scrimmage with our defense and offensive linemen. They have a good quarterback, but they only got one. If they're counting on that kid that was a transfer from Rutgers as their backup, he's not very good. But I like our chances against Illinois, but they're a bigger, thicker, more physical football team.
Well, I like the report there. I also like how Michigan has this game at home. It's the home finale. And it's the game that sometimes can be tricky because you tend, certainly fans tend to look past the second to last game when you have Ohio State there and you have what you think might be an easier game at home. And so that could be, something, a look at, a game a trap game, that you could make a case for. But, it's the home finale this year. And originally it wasn't, and they moved it around. And, Michigan goes after their bye week, Michigan State at Rutgers, Nebraska, Illinois. And then they go down to Ohio State. So they have the second one. So the third team you talked about is Maryland, and Michigan opens up the Big Ten season this year after Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Then it is Maryland at home. What do you know about the Terps?
Yeah, we're both similar situations. They've got 3 lamb chops to start the season out, but they could slip against the SMU. We got 3 lamb chops before they come to Ann Arbor, so we're similar there. But they got a guy that at times has looked like the best quarterback in the Big Ten. And you just don't know which one you're going to get. I mean, he is the last kind of quarterback. When he's having a good day, I want to defend because he's accurate and he's athletic. He's fast. He can run. He can avoid. They can run the quarterback keep, and he can throw the ball on his good days. I've seen him look terrible, but he's a guy that scares the heck out of me because he's back. And they've recruited good players. Loxley can recruit. They look a little bit more athletic. They will be. The talent level is slowly getting better for him, but I like our chances against him. I think we outcoached him last time we played him, and I think we outplayed him and outcoached him. But the quarterback is the key guy. He's a guy that could be a pain if he has a good day against us. But I think in general we've got better players, and that should be a victory.
Talia Tungavailoa. Yeah, Michigan was able to put almost 60 points and led 24-3 at the half last year, and Michigan fans will remember the most that Donovan Edwards went off in that game and had 10 catches for 170 yards, including a 77-yarder against the Terps, and that was on the road. So yeah, people feeling pretty good about that Big Ten opener. That's good stuff, Scar. Let's watch some video. Michigan added a basketball player, and this is the senior night performance from Jaelin Llewellyn. I want you to watch a little bit of Llewellyn and tell me what you think.
He's a regular starter. Saw them doing this in shoot around, working on that opening play, back screen into the post. John gets a touch, can't score.
Yeah, Danny.
Clip for you. Be sure to watch NASCAR.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know why that's
FS1.
Go ahead, Scar.
I watched him play, and the first thing I looked at when I looked at this kid and got the rundown, the first thing I wanted to know is what's his 3-point percentage?
YouTube TV. Try it free.
What is his 3-point shooting percentage?
I'm pretty exhausted.
We want a guy that consistently stretch the field, stretch the floor.
Started Mudwater in
and knock
May
down a three-point shot.
and this is our first product.
Coffee
alternative.
Keep going. Sorry to.
I was addicted to caffeine.
So that was there. You know, Frankie Collins is gone, but Frankie Collins doesn't give us the perimeter threat. The defense is collapsed with Frankie Collins in the game. With this kid, they're going to have to cover him. They're going to have to cover the three-point line. He's athletic. He can take it to the hole. He looks smart. I watched a good amount of film on him, and he looks a real smart kid. He doesn't turn the ball over much, but he can make a three-point shot. We got to have shooters, man.
It's really hard to stop.
Yeah, his three-point shot got a lot better. You know, he comes in as a grad transfer, but when you watch him, you really like all the things that he's able to do. Here he is running the point, bringing it up, but his shot, he makes a couple series of moves here. He likes the little underhanded pass here, but the jumper, technique-wise, what you're looking at, there he is dribbling around a little bit, making some moves, got good footwork underneath. But when you watch that three-point shot and you're just looking at it, you can see that he's got a lot to it. Here's a little step back on the drive, which is nice. We like to see the full arsenal, and he puts it on display in this particular game here. This might have been his sweetest move.
Yeah, that's a great point, Danny. You make a great point. The full arsenal. He's got all the weapons. He can take you to the hole, left, right, pump fake, and then shoot the three. So that's what we need. We need Hunter Dickinson to have an option to kick it out to a guy that people have to cover. You know, you can't be. There you go. That's what we're looking for, man. That's the threat. And then hopefully he's real smart with the ball as a leader out there and secures the ball, and we're not turning it over. See, there's a shot. So, yeah, I looked at the shooting. I think he was like 38.5 or something, which is great. Yeah. That's great.
He it up a little bit. Maybe he doesn't have the same build, but maybe a little bit like Eli Brooks.
Yeah, he does. He looks a little bit like Brooks. But looking at him, he looks like a little bit of like a Geo Baker type kid. You know, a good player from Rutgers. So, yeah, I think Juwan did good there. And, we definitely have some people that can stretch the floor this year. I know I got to believe that Caleb Houston will be a much better shooter, a much more confident kid this year.
Yeah, and one thing here, good free throw shooter. You mentioned the 3-point. He's not a spot-up shooter here. Here he is, going up and dunking one, which is nice to see. But he's a jump shooter. He's not just a set shot. And I think this is the one where he uses a little bit of a step back. Yeah, you want that.
Oh, wow. No.
You want that league is good. Harvard, that's good basketball. Those aren't, those are good teams. A Big Ten team can lose to Harvard or Princeton if you don't play good basketball. So I think it's a good pickup. I was hoping to get the kid from Texas Tech. But my sources tell me, that the amount of credits that he was going to lose was a big factor coming to Michigan.
Less contact than the other one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And the thing that I like, you see a little bit of all of it there from the young man, but having that the ability to rise and fire, and then also put it on the floor and be able to create some separation there, where whether you're jumping to the side, kind of they called it a step back a little bit there, but it wasn't so much as a step back to somebody like a side shuffle. He has that in his game. I like the Geo Baker comparison. He's got a similar body style and look like a little bit of a similar game as we watch him right here.
Yeah, so that's a good pickup. Danny, you were asking me, do I think Michigan football is back?
Yeah.
It depends on what your definition of back is. Now, the Schembechler back was splitting with Ohio State, beating Michigan State darn near 80% of the time. That's back in my era. Okay, the Gary Mola era he won 4 out of 5, I think, Big Ten championships. Lloyd Carr started out good, faded near the end. But in my opinion, when we can recruit and have a get in there number 1 through number 6, 7, year in, year out, and if we can start getting to the point we start to dominate the Michigan State series and get to the point where we can split with Ohio State. But I think we have a foundation that could really get us in that direction from a program. I'm seeing a system offensively and defensively that I don't see us changing. I don't see Jim changing from what we're doing. And we just got to keep recruiting on all levels, the NIL and all the other stuff. And let's go down to Columbus this year and have success. Let's beat Michigan State at home. Let's beat Penn State at home. Because there were so many games last year that were so close. Nebraska, Penn State. So you can't say, are we just a dominant team? Yeah, we're a good team. We're really close to possibly being back, my kind of back. But we got to keep getting where we have better offensive linemen. Where when we play a team like Illinois, they don't have one kid on their offensive line that could start for Michigan. Or when we play a team like Michigan State, they don't have one kid on their defensive line that could start for Michigan. Because that's when we played Alabama, I know a couple of years ago, I'm like, God, I don't know how many guys we had that could start for Alabama on their offensive line or their defensive line. So when we're back, that means, we just got much better players and we're rolling. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. I liked it. I could sit there and just listen to you for another hour. But I got to go get some salsa.
All right, Denny. Go blue.
Maybe some cerveza.
There you go.
All right, Scar. Great job. We'll talk with you next week.
All right. Get the jalapeno too, baby.
I like jalapenos. Woo!